Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn. There's been a lot of talk about the total failure of leadership in terms of the political arena and the unelected bureaucrats since the beginning of the pandemic, and obviously earlier than that. But what's relatively gone under the radar is actually the failed spiritual leadership that has become incredibly evident with the events of 2020 and beyond. And as expected, the spiritual dimension, at least in my view, will be the last plane of reality or the last aspect of awakening which is actually taken seriously, which is actually given some increased focus and energy, because really at the moment the collective is focusing on the external dimension of reality, not the internal dimension. And so because of this, there is an obvious knee-jerk reaction to project all these issues onto the government, onto the bureaucrats, onto the various globalist organisations and so on, which is entirely understandable and predictable. But what we've seen in terms of the spiritual leadership is it's been extremely revealing. And to begin with, it's important to say that the term or the phrase spiritual leadership itself is it's something of a Kali Yuga phenomenon, because really when we talk about becoming a leader spiritually, any true being who has had a genuine revelation, genuine realization, they're not interested in the same way as someone who hasn't had that realization in being a leader. And this all basically comes back to their relationship with the ego, with the perception of who they are, or indeed the misperception. So in today's tragic influencer culture, we're seeing that so many people aspire to be spiritual leaders and to be influencers. But this really goes against the reality of what it truly means to be genuinely realised, genuinely awakened. But in terms of this video and the conversation around spiritual leadership, it's still relevant to consider that, because with leadership comes a responsibility, and a great responsibility, and in many ways a greater responsibility than what it is to be a leader in terms of infrastructure via the government or some other organisation, because ultimately it is the soul journey that is the most important and the most profound focus of this entire life, of this entire reality. But in this age, the dark age, the iron age of Kali Yuga, that's completely overlooked in terms of material success, in terms of status and all these sorts of things. Hence the term spiritual leadership. So it's inevitable that people want to share their message, that people want to support the collective, that want to be of service and all these kinds of things, and then gravitate towards a position of leadership or authority or integrity. But it's important to state at the very beginning that this idea of spiritual leadership is irrelevant for someone who is completely realised. So in terms of the pandemic and the influence of the indoctrination on the masses and so on, the first quality that we would assume is necessary in this context, specific context of what I'm saying now, is a rising of the consciousness and separating from the collective. Now, from a metaphysical point of view, this is rising the consciousness as a minimum to Manipura chakra, the navel chakra. And so someone perceives the world at this level, thinks in their own mind at this level, understands the phenomenon related with the collective and rising above the collective, and in terms of power, of dynamism, of leadership, of willpower, of individuality. And that's the key, or some of the key qualities of a person who's risen their consciousness to Manipura chakra, and is therefore at least, and in a limited way, able to offer spiritual leadership. Obviously beyond is better and offers a better quality of integration and a far superior level of consciousness in terms of the seven chakras. But really what we're looking at here is the ability to perceive the collective, the ability to perceive what or how the collective have been indoctrinated, and to separate the consciousness from this collective, which is the herd, which is the hive mind. And what we've seen is that basically, and I'm speaking generally at this point of view, is that in terms of the magic potion, we have seen so-called spiritual leaders advocating the uptake of that medication, having it themselves, and recommending it to others, to whether it's their own followers or in the broader community. And even we've seen people such as the Dalai Lama himself actually becoming involved in that promotion. So where does that leave us as far as trusting the current spiritual leaders in this paradigm? Well, it's been incredibly revealing that many, but not all, of what would be considered, at least by the masses, to be spiritual leaders in this planet, have completely failed in their duty, in their responsibility, and in their own level of consciousness to actually perceive reality for what it is, which in the current period we're in terms of this leadership, it can be argued that this is the most important thing of all, because otherwise you are like leading all your disciples, your followers, and all these sorts of things into extremely disadvantageous, if not life-threatening circumstances. And so this failed leadership has a massive silver lining, and we have seen, quite shockingly, many people in different faiths, different traditions, whether it's yoga, meditation, the Vedantic path, the Tantric path, the people in personal development, basically have either not spoken out about this global issue that we've all been faced with, or they simply don't understand. And if people are not speaking out about it who are so-called leaders, then why? And I'm sure all of them have a very good reason as to why they have hid behind their branding, behind their marketing, behind their persona. And basically, either way you cut it, it's a failure to alert people to the darkness, to the evil that pervades this planet, which any spiritual leader should. Look at what Jesus did when he came to the temple and saw the money changers. He didn't hide behind some fake PR or fake branding or fake marketing. And this persona is actually an interesting word, because it's actually Latin for mask. Persona is Latin for mask. So this mask that so many of these spiritual leaders are hiding behind is being revealed. And it has been revealed for everyone to see, even if everyone doesn't have the eyes to see it. And the silver lining from this is ultimately we are moving from the age of Pisces, which is the verb for Pisces is I believe, to the age of Aquarius, and the verb for the Aquarius is I know. So we're moving from faith-based traditions, and you can see the great religions around the world are largely faith-based. There's nothing wrong with that, but it basically means that there is a focus on having this belief and having this trust and this faith, which are beautiful qualities, but are they based on the truth? Are they based on reality? And this has given rise to much deception in the Piscean age because of the Piscean qualities and the illusory nature that's related to Pisces and Neptune and so on. That means that there has been a great deception by many of these so-called gurus. Now, in terms of the guru itself, guru means actually dispeller of darkness, that the age has been served, if you look at it at Kali Yuga or calculate it in various different ways of referring to the same time period, whether it's Piscean age, however you want to look at it. There have been great gurus, Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda, Swami Shivananda, Ramakrishna, Ramana Maharishi. There's been a lot of great gurus, but we've seen the abuses of power, particularly, in this modern era, going back, say, 50 years or however. There's no definitive time frame. that shows that the age of the guru is ending, and this abuse of power, this failure to be an effective leader, to be a leader in integrity, and to speak what the truth is, because the truth is the light. And even the age we're moving into, Satya Yuga, Satya means truth. And it's become very obvious, again, only for the people who have eyes to see, that not every one of these gurus or so-called leaders is having the ability to speak the truth. And it's a great failing. But this transition into the Satya Yuga, or the Aquarian age, it has a different integration with spirituality. So we're moving from faith-based traditions, I believe, to I know. So there's a knowing of the Aquarian age. It's more a direct perception, a direct connection to the absolute, to the transcendent, to the divine, whatever word you want to use to describe that. And there's not a middleman, which is the priest, which is the one that gives you absolution, which is the one who is basically acting as an intermediary between you and God, if you want to use that word, you and the absolute, you and the universe, however you want to look at that. And so the path is direct. It is more integrated in a, at least I feel, in a more direct way, which is more perhaps tangible in the sense that there is no need for a middle person. And this is showing up in this failure of spiritual leadership through the pandemic to prompt us, and this is the silver lining I'm referring to actually start to take responsibility for our own spiritual growth, to develop our own intuition, to even develop our own instinctual abilities at a much deeper level, to be more integrated, more connected at this level, because the people who have been recommending the magic potion and this failure to speak out against the tyranny and everything else that we've seen, it shows that they're disconnected from their own instinctual nature, that they don't their survival instincts are compromised. They're not connected in that way. And also intuitively, even if you don't understand, you don't have access to the internet, you don't keep up with what's happening in the truther community, in the awakening community, which is, it's a fair enough. People around the world don't have the same access to the internet and so on. But intuitively, that there's so many of these people are disconnected from their intuition. They're not in their center. They're not divinely guided. And this is very concerning in the age of branding, in the age of marketing, where this is glossed over through this garb, through what someone's persona, their mask. And at the same time, the silver lining is that there has been a whole new wave of true leaders coming through spiritually, but they're not recognized in the same way because they don't have a big following. They don't have the same persona. They don't have the same mask. They don't have the same branding, but they're actually much more authentic and genuine and sincere. And this is something that's going to grow in the as time passes. That it will become more clear. And it'll also become more clear who is the false light. And that's not even referring to the New Age, but the New Age is a whole other spectrum of confusion, which is not really relevant for this video. But what is important to understand is that this means that we're being prompted to start to have a bigger trust in ourselves. Now, this will be more difficult for different personality types, particularly if you study modalities such as the Enneagram. You'll see that not everyone will have the same capability to develop this, but that's what the challenge is, obviously, while others will naturally gravitate towards this. Now, it's not to say that leadership and guidance won't be necessary during the transition and even after the transition, but it will be integrated in a much different way than the age of marketing in spirituality. And you'll see that people will have, in some ways, faster growth because they will learn to go within, to trust this inner stillness, to trust the inner knowing. And this is a very powerful quality that really we all need to develop during this transition and develop it stronger and stronger. So this becoming our own guru, it's sort of separating the wheat from the chaff as we start to perceive who the false light is, what the false light is, and it becomes a more embodied wisdom, which is really what many people already have. It's just that they are not really perhaps ready to share their message yet or step into that role. But it's much more important than any of those things to develop it at a personal level, and that goes for the people who are masquerading themselves as the false light, because they have their journey of awakening as well. So they're not excluded from the tapestry of this great cosmic game that is unfolding. And we'll see that this failure in spirituality will give rise like a phoenix to the birth of a whole new paradigm of who we take seriously in terms of guidance, in terms of their voice, in terms of their opinion, and specifically in terms of their discernment, which is at least at the very minimum starting in Manipura, the navel chakra, and going into Ajna, the third eye, Ajna chakra. So it's exciting in this way that this dimension of spiritual growth will be accelerated and accentuated as we move through this great shift of the ages, and at the same time the redundancy of the Kali Yuga need for a guru. And there's even people who refer to themselves in even the title of their name, guru, who have taken this magic potion. It's been quite remarkable to see. It's been in some ways unexpected, and in other ways extremely expected. So we're all part of this journey of awakening, and it will be very demanding spiritually, particularly for people who are not really coming to terms with the spiritual dimension of their being at this stage. But that will change. There is time to step into this growth and time to step into this newfound awareness, but it is important to make sincere efforts and to connect with others who are on this journey, because if you are still only connected to the hive mind, I mean, we're all connected to the hive mind to some degree. If you are still connected to the hive mind only, then this is going to be extremely difficult, because the hive mind is struggling to come to terms with their own individuality and their own personal sovereignty through this. And this is part of the growth as well. So everything is pointing towards an accelerated evolutionary process during this decade and beyond. And it's important to seize the day and make the most of it, and see this opportunity for what it is, a true opportunity for a genuine, profound spiritual awakening. Thanks for watching. We live in epic times.